Live from
MMBA,
the area's most watched
morning
news. This is News Center
at 9.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brennan Round.
I'm Maddie Collette.
And this is the 9 a.m. news story coming at you with the latest in democracy. Every single person in their country has their own unique thoughts, wants, and desires. The people in the government pay taxes and follow rules and regulations, while people in that society can also make laws and decisions by pushing laws and regulations through Congress or legislation. One of the recent laws passed regarding the dignity of the people was same-sex marriage laws. Beforehand, same-sex marriage was not formally allowed by states and governments, and marriage licenses regarding same-sex marriage were revoked. Well, over time, people kept pushing laws all the way to the Supreme Court, and in 1972, the Supreme Court ruled that they no longer follow any of these laws that were getting pushed all the way to the Supreme Court, therefore disregarding them and letting the state governments then handle their own laws. Well, over time, states began to reject or rewrite their own marriage laws, and in 2004, the state of Massachusetts became the first state to fully accept same-sex marriage as a law. Over time, individual laws and regulations kept getting pushed through Congress, and it ended up culminating into Obergefell versus Hodges. John Obergefell was a man who wanted same-sex marriage and made it all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court then ruled that it was unconstitutional to ban same-sex marriage in all states under the 14th Amendment. People wanted their own free will, rights, and ideas to their government to push laws and bills through in order to make people happy and also to make the populations happier as well.
Okay. And another story in the news today is the state of the U.S.'s equality, a goal that has been sought after for years. Full equality has evaded the empty hands of our country since its birth. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers declared that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Equality, which represents fairness before the law and for all opportunities, is essential within our democracy. It attempts to guarantee that people are not discriminated against for their race, color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identification. Try as we might, we have fallen short of these promises, as shown by the dark past of inequality with minority groups within the United States. Today, we are still seeing inequalities throughout our great United States. People of color make up 2.3 million, or 34%, of the total 6.8 million correctional population, when they only represent 12% of the U.S. adult population. This statistic is alarming, seeing as there are nearly 1,549 Black prisoners for every 100,000 Black adults, nearly 6 times the imprisonment rate for whites, 272 per 100,000, and nearly double the rate for Hispanics, 823 per 100,000. This inequality is only one of the hardships that people of color experience. As a nation that boasts equality for all, there are clear discrepancies that affect incarceration rates. In addition to the inequality regarding correctional facilities, people of color experience more police brutality than any other race. Police killed 1,143 people in 2018. Black people were 23% of those killed, despite being only 13% of the population. Here we see that people of color make up a larger percent in deaths than they do in overall population. Today, people of color are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. When looking at the Native American population, we see that more than half of Native American women and Alaskan Native women will experience sexual violence in their lifetimes. In addition to that, Native American and Alaskan Native women are more than 2.5 times more likely to be raped or sexually assaulted than any other women within the United States. Within these cases, 86% of reported cases of rape or sexual assault were committed by non-Native men. This is a clear example of Native American women being taken advantage of due to their ethnicity. Their perpetrators believe that they cannot be held responsible for their crimes, and they're right. The second they leave tribal land, they are free of their crimes as they cannot be extradited back into tribal lands. The U.S. court system is doing little to prevent this, clearly showing the inequality and disparity within the United States court system regarding Native Americans' rights. These cases are only the brink of the inequalities that are seen every day within the United States. Almost all minorities experience some form of discrimination due to their race, color, religion, gender, sexual identification, or sexual orientation. These cases of discrimination are clearly linked to the lack of equality within the United States. Equality might be a key piece that makes up our foundation of democracy, but is not present within this democracy. Until there is complete equality among all races, genders, religions, orientations, and identifications, we cannot claim to have respect for equality of all people. Following the disturbing cases of inequalities, we have another difficult subject to discuss. The concept of majority rule versus minority rights is difficult to grasp, figuratively and within this government. In order for a government to obtain majority rule versus minority rights situations, there needs to be faith within the system. Without this faith, majority rule versus minority rights will not be able to function. In this system, majority represents the will of the people, and the minorities must trust the majority will keep in mind the wishes of the minority when making decisions that affect everyone. Though this definition makes this topic sound ideal, it often does not work, especially within this polarized nation. With every election turnover, specifically the presidential, the United States undergoes a change in public policy and sometimes party rule. The winning party, whether Democratic or Republican, is now in control and conclusively becomes the new majority. While some minorities remain, those due to race, religion, orientation, etc., the losing party is now shoved into that collective minority pile. As MAGA flags fly proudly while President Trump incites his followers, the new Democratic minority is silenced and forgotten. Even though only 42.8% of Americans agree with Trump, Trump obviously still carries immense political sway. Throughout his presidency, he has stuck to his conservative roots and has exiled the minority, the Democrats, from influencing public policies. The only time that we don't see this type of thing is within the House, where Democrats have the majority, but within the Senate, Republicans have the majority. There's a clear discrepancy within minority versus majority rules. However, the Democratic minority still has a voice within the government, but they often do not truly make an impact with their vote and their voices. As the president and his followers roar over the minorities, the United States becomes increasingly polarized, as only one side is heard. All the president's policies work only for the Republicans, which is a positive for the party, but the Democrats' wants are completely forgotten, which is not how majority rule versus minority rights is supposed to work. The issue of majority rule versus minority rights regarding political parties falls short within the United States of America, as the majority does not support the minority, and the minority has no faith in the majority.
Good morning, sports fans. Big in the news today, necessity and compromise in the impeachment of our president, Donald Trump, and the legislative indecision over Trump's belonging in or out of a peach. In all seriousness, the indecision of our Congress is concerning. Whether they are arguing over impeachment or abortion, there is no evidence of compromise within our government. This lack of agreement also impacts our country as Congress struggles to answer: should people have the right to own guns? Should the use of recreational marijuana and medical marijuana be legal in every state? Every problem that has plagued our country has yet to be solved due to political polarization. This is causing the progress of a lot of these topics to come to a halt because the Democrats and Republicans are two very different groups. For the two groups to compromise means that both sides are giving something up to reach a deal that benefits everyone. The polarization of the political parties is a non-example of the necessity and compromise is clearly not happening within Congress.
With the introduction of the constitutional amendment, certain individual rights were promised to every citizen of the United States of America. These include freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. Since 1791, the introduction of the First Amendment, the government has attempted to uphold these ideals. As such, the government cannot penalize you because of your beliefs and your activities, unless deemed illegal. Individual freedom allows people to do what they want, unless it violates the rights of society. While the government may tolerate it, actions from the citizens prove hostile to many of these freedoms, as the government does not attempt to halt these aggressors. They are liable in their ignorance. You can just edit it. While the government has theoretically followed the First Amendment, there are several situations that show the hindering of these certain individual freedoms. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, allowing everyone in the United States to practice their own religion. This is a reason why the United States has managed to stay away from religious conflicts. that have split other nations. This is why the United States does not have an official religion. Even though the United States does not have an official religion, there is obvious religious majorities. 70.6% of American adults identify themselves as Christians. 22.8% identify themselves with no religion. 1.9% with Judaism and 0.9% with Islam. Though these other religions make up only a small majority, they see the most religious intolerance. The freedom is limited by the harassment and prejudice that they face. Most Americans, adults, 82%, say Muslims are subjected to at least some discrimination in the United States today. According to Pew Research Center survey conducted in March, including a majority, 56% who say Muslim is discriminated against a lot. The statistics is followed by the 2/3 of Americans, 64%, also say Jews face at least some discrimination in the U.S. Freedom of religion might exist within America, but its effects are threadbare. Overall, freedom of religion is an example of personal freedom, as it allows for the individual's practice of religion. However, with the stigma that comes with different religions, it is not an entirely free system.